Yeah, so I'm an alumni. I played at the College of Charleston for 4 years. I was a 4-year starter. And I had some good time. I played for Bobby Cremins. And I married a beautiful Southern belle who's standing right here to my right. She kept me here, y'all. But back in my childhood, so I was growing up, I was born in the 80s, so the crack epidemic, and there was a lot of situations going on in my hometown. So a lot of people were going through some situations. They couldn't afford anything. Myself, we lived in poverty. I was coming home, there wouldn't be no electricity in the house. I used to be homeless. I lived in motels. I went to 7 different high schools. I had a lot of situations going on. So when I grew up and I fought to get out of poverty, and I went on and got my my college degree, I got my master's degree, I got my doctorate, so I literally went from homeless to Dr. Johnson. But in that situation, even with all the fighting and the clawing and all the things that I did to get out of poverty, I couldn't help but to think, after I researched Andrew Yang, what that $1,000 a month could have did for my upbringing. That $1,000 a month could have paid those bills that I had at the house that we had going on. I maybe would not have had to come home and not have any electricity, out. I could have had some food to eat. I could have had some things that could have, just taken a little burden off of my mother's back. It could have helped my sister who was raising some children by herself because she was a single mom. But also, I thought about all the people that were dealing with situations that were in my neighborhood. I thought about everybody who was really going through a struggle. I thought about all those things. So I grew up and I started to give back. I started a nonprofit organization where I help individuals who are going through some things, some disenfranchised individuals. And I was walking around and I was going on tours to like Michelin, these big plants, and I was seeing robotic arms moving pallets back and forth. And I started to think, how many jobs is that's being taken away? And then I went to Walmart and I saw a big robot that was riding around Walmart, and I said, what is this robot doing? They said it is counting inventory and cleaning the floors. And I'm thinking, well, how many jobs is that taking away? And then you go up to the front to check out, and for convenience, what do? You go to the self-checkout. So I go to the self-checkout, I'm thinking, well, how many jobs is that taking away? And then if you've been to McDonald's or Burger King recently, you go in there, you don't even talk to anybody anymore. You go in there and you click on a screen and you order your stuff and you go walk right to the front and you go to the counter and you pick your food up. Well, how many jobs is that taking away? So it's not just taking away regular jobs, it's taking away every job. It's affecting all industries and it's affecting everybody. But just think about this UBI and what it could do for your family. What would you think? What would you do for this extra $1,000 a month? What would you do with an extra $1,000 a month right now? You pay some bills. Some of y'all who have been in situations, you probably wouldn't have stayed in those situations long like you had to. You probably would have been, said, I want to invest in my business. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to step out. I want to, think about the battered women that you probably know. Think about those women. They probably would have jumped out of those situations. They wouldn't have stayed around as long as they had to. I'm just thinking about this UBI and what it can do for humanity. And that's why this man's slogan is humanity first. We're all about humanity first. So, without further ado, before I bring this great, amazing man up here, I want you all to cheer for this man. I want him to get up here, and I don't want him to be able to say a word for the next 2 minutes. I want you to drown this man all the way out. I want you to drown him out. I want him to try to speak, and I want him to all him here is Andrew Yang or Yang Gang. Or whatever it is y'all want to do, that's what I want to hear y'all do. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the next President of the United States of America, Mr. Andrew Yang.
Hello, South Carolina. It's okay, you don't need to listen to Jermaine. I love you guys all, I love the Yang Gang. Thank you all, it's tremendous to be here. You don't know it, you don't feel like it all the time, but you are among the most powerful people in our country today. Well, I did the math, do you know how many Californians each South Carolinian is worth? About 500. So there are 500 people here today, that's like 250,000 Californians. It's like 6 football stadiums full of Californians. That's why presidential candidates will come to you all and present our vision for the future of this country, because you can actually control that future. Again, it doesn't feel like it, you're just living your lives. You're Democrats and independents and Republicans and conservatives who are here today. Mostly Democrats though, am I right? But you all can turn this country in a whole new direction in just a few short months. And the question you all have to ask yourself is this, it's a question that Democrats have to get right in particular. The question is, how the heck did Donald Trump become our president in 2016? I mean, everyone here, you have friends and neighbors and family members, as do I, that voted for Donald Trump. And if you were to turn on cable news, to your point, why would you think that he's our president today?
Russia.
You yelled out Russia, yes. What else on that list?
Facebook.
The Electoral College, Facebook, Hillary Clinton, the FBI, emails, all mixed together. But I did the math. There's a very clear and direct explanation for why he's our president, and this is what we have to take to the rest of the country. The reason why Donald Trump is our president is that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Iowa, and tens of thousands right here in South Carolina. There's a straight line up between the adoption of industrial robots and automation in a voting area and the movement towards Donald Trump. Unfortunately, it's not going to stop at manufacturing. It's now going to shift to other parts of our economy. How many of you have noticed stores closing around where you live here in South Carolina? And why are those stores closing? Amazon, that's right, a one-word answer. Amazon sucking up another $20 billion in business every single year. How much did Amazon pay in taxes last year, South Carolina? 0, that's right. They paid less in taxes than everyone here in this vast group of people. So that is your math, South Carolina. 20 billion out, 0 back. 30% of your stores and malls are gonna close in the next several years. And the most common job here and in most of the country is working as a retail clerk. The average retail worker is a 39-year-old woman making between $9 and $10 an hour. What is her next move going to be when her store closes? Like Jermaine said, how many of you have seen a self-serve kiosk in a fast food restaurant when you walked in? McDonald's is going to roll self-serve kiosks out in every location in the country by 2021. Working in food service or food preparation is the 3rd most common job in our country. When you all call the customer service line of a big company and you get the software voice on the other end, you probably do the exact same thing I do, which is you pound 000, say human, human, human until you get someone on the line, right? Raise your hand if that's what you do. Oh yeah, everyone's hands up. I do the same thing. That software is super irritating. You like breathe a sigh of relief when you get a person on the line. But in several short years, the software is going to sound like this. Hey, Andrew, how's it going? What can I do for you? It's going to be fast, efficient, delightful. You might not even realize it's software. What is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who work in call centers right now who make on average $12 to $14 an hour? Donald Trump is not the cause of all of our problems. He's a symptom. He's a manifestation. We're in the midst of the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, what experts are calling the 4th Industrial Revolution. When is the last time you heard a politician say the words 4th Industrial Revolution?
Yesterday on YouTube.
Just now, am I right, South Carolina?
Yes.
And I'm barely a politician, in case you haven't noticed. I'm going to talk about one example that's near and dear to many of you. How many of you know a truck driver here in South Carolina? No surprise, driving a truck is the most common job in 29 states. And my friends in California are working on trucks that could drive themselves. They're motivated by the most American of reasons, the money. $168 billion a year in cost savings if they can successfully automate away truck driving jobs. What is that going to mean for your friends and neighbors and the 3.5 million Americans who drive a truck for a living right now, make about $50,000 a year, 49-year-old men? Or the 7 million Americans who work in truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal. The robots don't need to stop. If you're a human truck driver, you know this. You have to get out of your truck after 14 hours so you can go to sleep. The robot truck never needs to stop. And only 13% of American truck drivers are unionized. This is not going to be a negotiation. The robot trucks are already on our highways in Arizona. UPS just invested. You can actually YouTube clips of the self-driving trucks on our highways right now. If you can imagine what happened to the manufacturing workers dialed up to 11 or 12. That is where we're heading as a country. And it is up to you, the voters of South Carolina, to present a different vision for our country as quickly as possible. Now, what is that vision? When you first heard about me in the campaign, you probably heard something like this. Like Jermaine said, there's an Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. You remember hearing that, South Carolina? And the first time you heard it, you were like, that sounds like a gimmick. That sounds too good to be true. That will never happen. But this is a deeply American idea. Certainly not my idea. Thomas Paine was for it at our founding, called it the citizen's dividend. Martin Luther King championed it in the 60s. It is what he was fighting for when he was assassinated in 1968. Called it the guaranteed minimum income for all Americans. 1,000 economists endorsed it in the 60s. It passed the U.S. House of Representatives twice under Richard Nixon in 1971, called the Family Assistance Plan. And then one state adopted a dividend 11 years later, where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that?
Alaska.
And how does Alaska pay for it?
Oil.
And what is the oil of the 21st century?
Technology.
Technology, software, self-driving cars and trucks, big data. How many of you saw that study that just came out that said that our data is now worth more than oil? Raise your hand. Do you all remember keep your hand up if you remember getting your data check in the mail. Where did the data check go? I can tell you exactly where it went. It went to Facebook, Amazon, Google, and the rest of the Silicon Valley crew, these trillion-dollar companies that are paying zero in taxes. I'm going to ask you all, South Carolina, whose fault is it that they're paying zero in taxes? Is it their fault or is it our fault?
Ours.
It's our fault. It's their job to try and pay as little in taxes as possible. But it is our job, it is your job to make sure they can't do that. Am I right, South Carolina?
Yes.
So this is the vision of a trickle-up economy, from our people, our families, and our communities up. We can easily afford this $1,000 a month for every American adult. And after I'm president, thanks to you all, in 2021 and the money comes into your accounts, how will you spend the money in real life? Where will the money go? Go ahead and shout it out.
Back to the community.
Clothing for the kids, start a business, tuition. How much of it would stay right here in South Carolina?
All of it.
Almost all of it. A little bit of it would float up to the cloud. You'd upgrade your Netflix subscription, maybe buy an extra toaster on Amazon. But most of it would go to the things you spend money on every single day. Daycare expenses, car repairs you've been putting off, Little League signups, local organizations, local political causes. This is the trickle-up economy that you can make real as early as 2021. This is the vision of the economy we have to take to the rest of the country, and with you at the helm, it can spread like wildfire. Because right now we are heading off a cliff. We're going in the wrong direction. How many of you were excited about GDP when you woke up this morning? You're like, oh, even though it's a weekend, I'm gonna make a big contribution. Of course not, it's ridiculous. It's gotten so bizarre that our GDP is at record highs, also at record highs in America today. Stress, anxiety, student loan debt, even suicides and drug overdoses, all record highs. It has gotten so bad that our life expectancy has declined for 3 years in a row. Do you all want to know the last time America's life expectancy declined for 3 years in a row?
1980.
I love you, Yang Gang. The Spanish flu of 1918, global pandemic that killed millions. That's the last time America's life expectancy declined for 3 years in a row. Now it is declining because suicides and drug overdoses have overtaken vehicle deaths as cause of death in the United States. But it's okay because GDP is high. That's the perversion of the economy that we're in right now. We're following GDP off a cliff, and even the inventor of GDP 100 years ago said this is a terrible measurement for national well-being and we should never use it as that. 100 years ago, here we are trumpeting it. So if you don't get excited about GDP when you wake up in the morning, South Carolina, what would get you excited if I say it got better in your towns and communities?
Children's success.
Childhood success rates, yeah, as a parent, how many of you would get excited about that? How about clean air and clean water? How about mental health and freedom from substance abuse? How about our own health and life expectancy? These are the measurements we should be using for our own progress, and as your president, I will update GDP to the new American scorecard, and I will present it to you all every year at the State of the Union. I will be the first president to use a PowerPoint deck at the State of the Union.
How about medical care?
I'm going to touch on education a little bit because teachers are so important. How many of y'all are teachers? Right now, teachers are being treated like costs when it's actually the opposite. You all are investments. And a good teacher is worth his or her weight in gold in the classroom because they touch so many lives. As a parent, I can't tell you how grateful I am when I drop off my son and see a teacher that cares about their learning every single day. If you actually measured that impact, teachers would be getting a raise. Am I right, South Carolina? And that's exactly the direction we should go. We should start prioritizing teachers and also lighten the emphasis on standardized tests that at this point are more about telling our kids what they can't do than what they can do. Am I right?
Yes.
A bit of a history lesson. We actually came up with the SAT during World War II to figure out which kids we didn't want to send to the front lines. And now we still use the SAT every single year, like every year is wartime. And that's messed up. There's no reason to do it. So this is the vision of our economy that we can get excited about, a vision where our kids go to school to learn, and the teachers have a chance to teach in a genuine way, that we can measure our economy by our own progress and well-being. We have a sense of how to solve the real problems of our time instead of serving these productivity stats that are increasingly meaningless. Because right now, unfortunately, we have all been brainwashed to think that economic value and human value are the same things. They are not. And if we persist in acting like they are, we're going to continue to tear each other apart. The technology is not going to care if you're a smart, conscientious, hardworking truck driver or a lazy one. The robot can still do the job better. So we have to wake our fellow Americans up to the fact that it is not immigrants that are causing these problems. It is technology and the evolution of our economy. Donald Trump is our president today in part because he got some of the problems right. He came and said, we're going to make America great again. And what did Hillary Clinton say in response?
It's already great.
America is already great. Remember that, South Carolina? And that did not work. We need a different message. We need a new vision. Now, Donald Trump got some of the problems right, but his solutions were the opposite of what we need. What were his solutions? We're going to build a wall. We're going to make America great again. We're going to bring the old